It's really easy for us to say, like, hey, you know what? Business is going pretty good. Okay, what makes you believe that? Well, we had our best month in July. Okay, how do you define best month? Well, it was, we had our highest deposits. Cool. So what created that? We don't really know. We just kind of, it showed up and now we got to see it. And so now I think business is good. And the reason I point that out is it would be really easy to have the exact same scenario just flipped and have the exact same thought process. Like, how's the year? It's not going well. Well, how do you know that? Welcome to another episode of the Physician Growth Accelerator, a show where we break down your private medical practice systems into vitals, give you the tools to diagnose root cause of what may be restricting your growth, and prescribe what to do about it. I'm your host, Ed Williamson, and I believe that everything we experience in business and in life is the perfect outcome of our current system. It's okay if we don't like the outcome. Just know that it's the perfect one of the system that created it. And the power, the freedom that exists in that is all we have to do is take a step back, take some ownership, and tweak the system to create a different outcome. What I want you to think about is, how is business going so far? We have surpassed the halfway mark of the year. It's one of those times of year where you can't, I think every time of year there's this point of view like, I can't believe it's this time of year. And we're in another one. So the idea of August, September, how can it already be here? How is business going? What do you think about the year so far? And when you answer those questions, either out loud or to yourself, I want you to think about why you believe what you believe. How do you know the answer to that question? Is there something that you track and measure? Is it something that is a gut response? Is there a piece of data that you've witnessed recently that you're gravitating towards? For instance, it's really easy for us to say, like, hey, you know what? Business is going pretty good. Okay, what makes you believe that? Well, we had our best month in July. Okay, how do you define best month? Well, it was, we had our highest deposits. Cool. So what created that? We don't really know. We just kind of, it showed up and now we got to see it. And so now I think business is good. And the reason I point that out is it would be really easy to have the exact same scenario just flipped and have the exact same thought process. Like, how's the year? It's not going well. Well, how do you know that? Well, July was one of the worst months. What created that? I don't really know. It just showed up that way. And so both instances, one is viewed as positive, one is viewed as negative. They're both not good if we're not clear on what created the outcome. We're not clear on why we're judging the outcome the way we are. And we're not clear on what is going to happen going forward. So at this time of the year, in that August to September timeframe, sometimes the team needs to re-engage with some goals. Sometimes you started the year and you didn't have specific goals. That doesn't mean we have to wait until the end of this year. We can set some things now. We can get the team together and say, you know what? Here's something we're going to start measuring, and here's the goal for us to achieve by time frame. And you can do that today. You can say, you know what? It seems like our new patient visits go up and down. There's a lot of variability. We don't necessarily know what's happening. So let's focus on having X number of new patient visits each week, and let's get to that number by this date, and let's track it and tell everybody, hey, this is what we're measuring. Here's the number. Here's the number for the last 4 weeks. Here's the number for the week. Does anybody have any ideas on how we can generate more of this number that we're tracking? What you will find is teams really will engage with this, because as important as your work is, the fact that every day you're doing things to impact the lives of humans, and the lives of the humans you impact the lives of other humans. Sometimes people in the industry just forget And Monday morning, it's like, well, let me show up to work and do the stuff I do, wait for the end of the day and go home. Tuesday, I'll show up to work and do the stuff I do, and then Tuesday later, I'll go home. As opposed to thinking about, let's go achieve something specifically. And you will find that if you get your team together and it's a realistic number, it's a realistic thing that we should be tracking, meaning it makes sense, and you're consistent, you don't just bring it up one day and then never talk about it again, you will find that people get very engaged. They will have a little bit more of a kick to their step. They'll show up on time more often. They'll have more fulfillment from work because they know they're there to achieve a very specific thing. You don't need to set 97 goals for this to happen. You can pick one thing. It doesn't need to be the end of the year. It can be the end of August. Say, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. I care about this. Let's focus on this. It could be getting more reviews for the practice. It could be answering the phone call within 2 rings. It could be number of patient no-shows. Just pick one thing that you believe is important to the practice that someone can measure easily, and that's important. Are you a private practice leader dealing with team drama, growth headaches, or just trying to keep your head above water? Introducing the Physician Growth Accelerator membership, a free resource for our podcast listeners like you to get real solutions. Inside, you'll find exclusive materials, free courses, bonus podcast content, and live events, all designed to help your practice grow. It's free for now, so don't wait. Visit physiciangrowthaccelerator.com and click members to join today. Because if we can't measure it, then it's always, you're not going to be able to improve anything if you can't measure it. And everything can be measured, but in this case, I want you to pick something that can be easily measured by someone in the practice. It's not this heavy lift where you're going to have to wait 6 weeks for something to be measured. It's we can go run a report and we know this thing now. You set the number, you set the goal, communicate it to the team consistently every week. Here's the goal we set. Here's the number we got to. We were off by this. We were above by this. Nice work. Let's see what we can achieve next week, and just make it consistent. Pick one thing, and it'll re-engage your team for the end of the year. It's kind of silly to think about that we're talking about the end of the year already, but that's what we're going into, which is typically a very busy time, and it can get hectic, and we can lose sight of achieving specific goals. And if you're already living a business life where you're waiting to see what July presented to you, now's the time to take control of the things we want to achieve, knowing that every outcome is the perfect outcome of our current system. So when we start measuring, we can really identify what part of that system we need to tweak. And lastly, just make sure it's specific. Let's not say things like more or better or faster. If it's increasing Google reviews, call a certain number, call a certain percentage. Let's increase our positive Google reviews by 3 every week, as opposed to, hey, let's get more reviews, guys. Let's all get together. Let's get together. Everyone focus on it, because nobody focuses on it. You talk about it today, and everyone goes, oh, okay, and goes back to their regular life. And then 6 months go by, and you wonder why there's no more Google reviews. And then you get frustrated, and you say the same thing again. Everyone goes, okay, and then it goes away again. Not sure if I'm playing any scenario out you've experienced before, but the key is specificity, clarity, time frame. Hey guys, let's increase our positive Google reviews. Here's the behavior we're going to do it. We're going to ask people at this point in their process. And this is the person who's responsible for everyone asking. So Martha, make sure everybody's asking. And our goal is we want to get 3 new reviews a week. And who's going to report on that? Billy? Okay, you're going to report on that? Excellent. So you communicate with the team how many reviews we got at the end of every week so that we understand what we have to achieve the next week. So we can high-five each other. We can think about what we could do better. Let's bring clarity to the organization. Once you start this, you'll create a habit that you can actually put into so many different parts of your business. And it is, you can actually infect your operation with clarity and buy-in and people enjoying coming to work because they know they're here to achieve something specific. So I hope you found that helpful. If you ever need help looking at your business, understanding where the constraints are, always feel free to reach out to the Physician Growth Accelerator team. You can go to physiciangrowthaccelerator.com. You can check your vitals. There's also a ton of other resources there, webinars, different things for you to utilize to create a healthier medical practice business. And with that, we'll see you next week on the Physician Growth Accelerator.